Here we go, y'all. Here we go. Hit the banner. Oh, baby. They done it now. Whoa, Nelly. What they done just did, coming with the sabotage early. They coming with the sabotage early. Wow. See what they doing early? You see it, right? It ain't just me. They don't want you to know the truth. They want to keep you in the dark. They want to keep. Look at how they doing this. Mm-mm-mm. You see this? Y'all witnessing this, right? Now ask yourself why. All of this sabotage, and I ain't even said a word yet. Not one word. Now, let's start to get into this from the ground roots up. Stephen A. Smith is a liar. We've already proven that. Many people have seen it. They know now Stephen A. Smith is a liar. Complete liar. Now, because he's a liar and a manipulator and a deceiver, we will have to treat him accordingly. What you talking about? Now, when you start thinking about society and where society is as far as dealing with people like Stephen A. Smith, and why somebody like Stephen A. Smith, and it's so important to tell the truth about all of the lies that he put in his own book. When you make an autobiography and go to the extent of the many lies that he told, y'all wondering how did we get to this point where a guy with no experience whatsoever can pathologically create a history that did not exist? How did this get past anybody in journalism? That's what people need to ask themselves. How did this happen? How did we become the ones that were fooled? And just like that, this video had no notifications go out, really. Very limited notifications. Matter of fact, in the chat, how were y'all notified? Did you just happen to see it when I went live? Because not one notification went out. On top of it, on top of that note, right? Not one mobile alert or desktop has shown up in about a month. So Stephen A has his powers that be making these decisions behind the scenes. Now, let's get to the gist of things so that we can get things corrected and move in a way that is very progressive and positive. Now, Stephen A. Smith had a rapid rise in journalism, right? In just 6 months, he had accomplished a remarkable feat, going from a transitioning college graduation to a prominent position in one of the most largest, most influential newspapers in the United States of America, all without a degree in journalism. How did you achieve such a feat? Now, Stephen A. stated that his journalistic career began when he was in college at Winston Salem State, where he was a sports editor for the News Argus, which was the college newspaper. We have gone through the entire archive, and he has published from about October of 1990 between October of, April of 91. He published 5 articles. And 2 of them, he wrote about the basketball team. Amid to countless articles and reports of conspicuous absence, no mention or acknowledgement, no trace of Stephen A's affiliation with the team that he claimed he played for, and none of the historical article that made him write the book, where he says he got his title as the straight shooter. There's been no Coach Gaines must retire article, the article that supposedly made him famous, the article that made him the straight shooter. Where? Hmm? Where? Now, why is that to be? Does anyone know? Does anyone care? Why come the biggest article he supposedly have written in his entire life doesn't exist? No one has seen it. He doesn't have it framed. Where's this article? You claim that you had the world famous coach from Winston Salem State, Coach Big House Game. Rest in peace to him. And you took his legacy and said he must retire. It is weird that none of the assistant coaches, none of the other players that played on that team has ever said anything to say, we back up your story about Coach Gaines. In the college yearbook, you are never mentioned with the other writers of the newspaper. Stephen A. You have every authority on your show, the Stephen A. Smith Show, to provide the evidence, provide the proof, okay? Provide it to the rest of the world. Provide it. Jason Whitlock got his information from me. Now, and he didn't do a good job. So that's why I'm here, Jason. I know Jason's sticking up for Jason's, but no, he didn't do a good job. He just has more people watching his channel. So yeah, that's why my phone's blowing up with all these moves going left and right. My boy's freaking out because the Cowboys ain't making a move because they the Cowboys. That's what they do. Nothing. Now, here we go again. You see, Stephen A. Smith, towards the end of 1991, he got recruited by the sports editor of the esteemed Winston Salem Journal, a renowned daily newspaper with a century-long legacy in Winston State, North Carolina, right? Serving as a trusted source of news and information for the whole community of all the locals, the Winston Salem Journal is dedicated to giving people a comprehensive and dependable coverage of the sports events, topics related to the area. This is what they do. Now, because of that, everything is flipping upside down. And I want y'all to be clear about what's happening here. You see, Stephen A. was reportedly hired 5 minutes into his meeting with the sports editor. He was told he was a natural sports writer. According to him, you were a natural. They really liked this article where he called for Coach Gaines to retire. In another chapter that he was talking about, you could clearly see Stephen A. is making this bullshit up. Your title for working at this paper was sports department clerk. That was your title, Stephen A. And I challenge you to go out. Stephen A. Smith, your title was sports department clerk. You were never credited as a writer. You was a sports department clerk. So tell me how the sports department clerk is the most prominent writer, and you're hired in 5 minutes of being there because you're so great. Sports department clerk. That was your title. And what was your job when you were there? 1 week of starting your job, you were promoted to a new assignment covering the Wake Forest men's soccer team. So you such a prominent writer in sports, they stick you to the soccer team. Despite having no prior experience with the sport of soccer, they approached the team with this open-minded, this is what he told the whole world himself when he was covering soccer. And he forged an instant connection, reminiscent of his relationship with Coach Gaines. Now, you prompted an encounter that took you inside and you gave a stern rebuking to this soft coverage, emphasizing the importance and honesty of the coach and all this garbage. All your assessments, everything that you said was a lie. When you wrote that article, they told you to do your damn job, according to you, because you wasn't calling it like you see it. You was just writing all the nice things about people because you didn't want to get people upset. And you're not calling it down the line. And you had a professional duty to tell it like it is. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, so when you go in and you get a subscription to the Winston Salem Journal archive, they've confirmed that the database contains every article that has ever been published. There is not one article from Stephen A. ever discussing soccer. Someone else wrote those stories during that time. Furthermore, there is not a single article at all from Stephen A. Despite his claims, there is no evidence he ever worked or wrote for Winston-Salem Journal. And here's a side note. Warren Buffett owns the newspaper. Just for those who want to know. The Winston-Salem Journal is owned by Warren Buffett. Now, if you go and purchase a subscription into the Winston-Salem Journal's archives, they will confirm that in that database, it contains every article that has ever been published. So the soccer story, you got to do your damn job, all this stuff you got in your book, provide an article. Provide it. Why isn't it in the archives? Where is it? There was another writer covering that sport at that time. Why you're not there? Despite all your claims, There's no evidence you ever worked or wrote for Winston Salem Journal. All the lies don't stop. The Stephen A. lies don't stop. Stephen A., your lies don't stop just there. Your whole career has been a lie. During your final semester, right, he interned at Atlanta Journal-Constitution. That's a 5-hour car ride coming from Winston-Salem. Did you drive there every day? Did you move there? Was it a remote job? He never says in his book. He never explained how he got the position. That's a significant newspaper in the Atlanta metropolitan area. It was considered a major paper and the only one that ran daily in the Atlanta region. It was owned by Cox Communications, one of America's richest families. Right? Stephen A. said he worked in the newsroom. So I guess he did, in fact, make a 5-hour drive, right? He said he was writing about the Atlanta Braves, the college football, and college basketball. And he was a staff writer. He greatly enhanced his resume with numerous published articles and everything else, and all of his immaculations, and he paved the way for all these opportunities in the future. Exposed Stephen A. Did a great job of, getting all the resources and doing all of this archive digging up. Now, the entire archive for that newspaper was reviewed. Stephen A. published 6 articles from February the 19th to March 23rd, 1992. They all covered college basketball. He was never credited or mentioned anywhere else. 4 years later, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution found itself in a thrust of national news on a fateful event, July 27th, 1996, when Centennial Olympic Park was rocked by that bomb explosion, leaving 2 gone and numerous injured, with the Richard Jewell story, with the confusion of him being, targeted, the guy who was a hero, who discovered the suspicious backpack and helped evacuate the area, right? And then he became the center of the investigation. All of this was going down, right? Y'all remember the Richard Jewell story? Well, you should. Now, according to the college commenced program, Stephen A. probably graduated in, I think, 92, having completed his coursework in December of the preceding year and earning a degree in mass communications. Right? Given the rapid trajectory of his career, one might find it intriguing that he never majored in journalism. That's a very key fact, people. He never majored in journalism. He went and focused on communications. Yeah. There is nothing there. He never majored in journalism, which is dedicated focus on reporting, right? Writing and producing news content. That would offer a more direct preparation for your chosen profession, right? If you're going to get a degree in mass communications, That's a broader standing of it. Most people who's in communications, a lot of them took a journalistic approach to it. They were journalists first. So where did he get that he was a natural sports writer? You see, that's a learned skill that requires training and on the job experience. Now, after graduating in May of 1992, Stephen A embarked on his next career move, joining the ranks of the Greensboro News and Record. The allure of this opportunity was just 15 minutes away from where he went to college. They offered him a chance to immerse himself in the vibrant sports world in the area. Now, did you move from Atlanta back to North Carolina? He never says. He just appears. This is how it appears in his book. He just appears in areas. He don't go through like, hey, I moved there, I did this. He don't say. Of course, there was few blacks, and he had to crack the barriers. Wouldn't be nothing if this black man didn't break down the barriers. He had to carve himself out in history. Yet, as time passed, he found himself yearning for more. Oh, yeah, he loved this. He was a featured columnist, and he was up for the challenge. Not only that, he left the people yearning for more. Yearning for more. That's what he said. That's in his book. Now, if you do the investigation, if you do your journalistic reporting, you will find out Stephen A claims in his book all of these wonderful things about the Greensboro News and Record, right? But if you do your digging and your research, you will find out there is no record of his employment with Greensboro News and Record. There is no articles to ever mention his name. There is no evidence of him publishing any pieces there. It's worth to note that the Greensboro News and Records share common ownership with the Winston Salem Journal, both being under the umbrella of Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett owns both. So, with that being said, why we can't find any information? Stephen A? Why there's no record of you working there? That's just weird. No one can seem to find any records of you doing any goddamn thing. For somebody who's so prominent in his book. See, I know most of y'all didn't read that book, so I've saved y'all the trouble. The lies, the many lies in that book, as I told you, this is so in depth. We had to take every lie that this man has told and magnify it times 1,000. So that's why you're not going to see any notifications go out, because he has his people here at YouTube doing the dirt behind the scenes. He's a plant. He's a hack, like I told you. He's a hack. And what do they do with these hacks? They keep them in line. Thanks for the super chat, Mike. Mm-hmm. I know. Now, when these situations happened with Stephen A. 7 months earlier into his college graduation, he grappled with his brother passing away tragically. And he was motivated by the death of his brother. And he went to go work for the New York Daily News in early of 92. And this would the loss of his brother driven him to pursue his dreams in New York. He was determined. So he went and got a freelance position with the New York Daily News. He attributed landing this role to a college article he made for saying the coach gains to retire. The same article he keeps bragging about, right? This is the same article he keeps raving over. Hmm. Well, it's like this. In the 1990s, the New York Daily News had a circulation of about a million readers, right? And so one of the largest newspapers in the United States has got a strong presence in the New York landscape, especially during that time. Still now, the Daily News still got some pull. So we checked on it. Stephen A published his first piece on March 7th, 1993. He wrote about Tiny Archibald. So writing about Tiny was how he got pretty much rolling, right? So now he's writing about Tiny. Hmm. Oh yeah, he just writes this piece. It's called Tiny's Touch. Archibald teaches lessons to the youth. So he's writing about Tiny Archibald, and under Stephen A's name, it says special to the news. This indicated he's not a when you see under Stephen A. Smith's name, it says special to the news in this article. A Boss 98, baby. Stink Jones. Oh, hold up. Stink Jones. Bringing your girl to the family reunion, boy, and you got that crazy cousin that pop up. Stink Jones. Don't hurt yourself now. Stink Jones. Hold on. We gonna get back to this. I gotta see Stink. Stink Jones. Turn around, baby. Just turn around here, girl. You got a Boss 98 on you, baby. You got a bad dude to wait. Bringing your girl to the crazy family reunion. Boy, they meet that crazy cousin. Turn around one more time. You got a Boss 98 on you, baby. Woo, woo. Oh, God. You got a bad dude wanky. Woo, man. That scene always cracked me up, man. But let's get back to it. So, Stephen A. was special to the news. That indicates he is not a regular newspaper staff member. Okay? So he contributed that specific piece as a freelance writer. So Stephen A. at this point was telling the truth. He was a freelance writer. Okay? So shortly after this article was released, he applied for a 3-year paid internship by the LA Times and New York Newsday, known as Internship Program. It's the MetPro Internship Program. That program seek out all the high potential, highly motivated, inspiring journalists that they're trying to come into their own, right? Stephen A.'s college is not considered a prestigious college. Out of a pool of 3,000 people, Stephen A. was chosen for the internship in April of 1993. This raised some confusion because Stephen A. had previously expressed his dream of covering sports for a New York paper. That was his dream. Stephen A., that was your dream. You said, my dream was to cover sports for a New York newspaper. What happened? What happened to that dream? Right? So after publishing your first article, you already seeking employment somewhere else? So following your selection for this internship, right, you had a meeting with the management team of the Daily News to inform them of your departure. However, the newspaper was keen on retaining him, promptly presented a plan. They offered him a full-time sports writer position to begin in August, approximately 4 months later. There was one condition, though. During the intern period from all April to August, he would have to cover crime. He had never covered crime before, so now he was in a panic mode. So he started having doubts about his capabilities, but his cousin reassured him and boosted his confidence, saying, Steve, you're the shit. This is in his book, y'all. Then he followed up with, stop putting that bullshit in your head. If anyone was made for this, it's you. Other family members were encouraging him as well. Stephen A. accepted the position. He moved to Jamaica Estates in Queens and lived with his childhood friend, Cardell Brooks. Stephen A., days and nights, they was consumed with writing stories about stabbings and shootings and murders and car crashes that were fatal. 2 months into this role, he faced his biggest challenge yet. Right? June 28, 1993, at 3:15 a.m., the state troopers attempted to stop a 1984 Mazda pickup on the Southway operating without a rear license plate. The vehicle fled and attempted to evade the police officers, right? The suspect finally pulled over and he was identified as Joel David Riffkin, who later would be known as the notorious serial killer. He was removed from the vehicle, taken into custody. The police searched the vehicle. In the back, they discovered a diseased body of a prostitute named Tiffany Brusacani, right? So the police came and did all of this investigating, right? The incident unfolded 2 hours away from the New York Police Department office, everything. This was a crazy story going on at that time. Mm-hmm. Oh, it was nuts. Her boyfriend had called to the police, reported her missing 2 days prior. All this stuff was going on. 2 days later, his mother died in a freak accident. 3 days after that, he committed suicide by a drug overdose, the boyfriend. So in prison, Riffkin began to confess to other homicides that he had done. Right? As this incident unfolded with many others, there were these situations that didn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. Now, recognizing the magnitude of a story this big, right? The editor saw an opportunity and surprisingly dispatched the newly hired freelancer who possessed limited journalistic experience, the lack of any prior exposure to crime. Any exposure to crime. Hmm? Brought him on the scene. He lacked any prior crime reporting. This is a massive, massive situation. So Stephen A., the detective Stephen A., arrives at the scene. He went to the homes of the other victims and got comments from their family. How he knew who the other victims were and where the families lived, Stephen A. never said. And the New York Daily News is a huge newspaper, so why would the lowest level guy be handed such a big story? That's unheard of. And generally, for a story of this magnitude, I've just explained to you how huge this story is. And Stephen A claims this was him. He said it was hard for him to knock on doors and ask for comments for someone who just found out his or her child was murdered. I can't imagine what it's like just finding out your kid was murdered. Then the next moment you have Stephen A showing up. Twice that day, he had doors slammed in his face. He said he would tell them how sorry he was, try to slide in a question of his own to get a quote. He learned how to ask tough questions. He said that nothing he had ever experienced came close to matching the unbearable pain on the face of the mother in Queens standing in the doorway as she talked to me about the murders of the daughter. On June 30th, 1993, the Joel Riffkin story was published in the New York Daily News. I've yet to find a physical copy of this article, so we went and purchased a subscription to the archive. They claimed every article ever published is in there. Here is the article right now, and Stephen A is listed in the credits on the second page. The only time he's ever publicly discussed the Riffkin story was in his autobiography. Mm-hmm. So, to show you I'm not lying, this is the story. This is in the archives. And right here, there's two writers of the story, and Stephen A. Smith's name is not there. These are the staff writers, Mike McConnell and Corey Brucevarg or whatever. Those two were the main writers of the story. So in this book, it's the only time he mentions this story. Okay? So we got the proof, Stephen A. We got the proof. We got all the proof. So this is how we know you've been lying to us. You've been lying, buddy. Why? That's what I'm saying. Your book is so full of lies. So many lies have been told, ladies and gentlemen. So many lies by this man. Nobody just took the time to care to go and research and look. All this man did was lie. Now, it's finna get even more interesting. I know y'all thinking, oh, that it's not finna get no worse than that. Now, during that investigation, right, Riffkin admitted that he did 16 additional murders of females, prostitutes in New York City and Long Island. The police put together what they call the Riffkin Task Force, led to the locations and identifications of all these people. May 9th of 1994, right? This man is now serving a life in prison. And what was that? 1993, on an episode of the #1 hit TV show Seinfeld, it was featured. The #1 rated TV show. Surprised you weren't on the show, Stephen A. Surprised you ain't say you was on Seinfeld. Yeah, and I was on Seinfeld too. Could have just threw that in the book too while you're lying. Might as well keep going. What's strange is that there's no real evidence of you writing stories about stabbings, shootings, fatal car crashes, murder. This article is about the closest thing anybody can find, right? It's possible Stephen A was covering crime, just as an embellishment on his part, but not to the role what he said. We would expect it to find a lot more articles from you as it relates to Stephen A, the detective. Your lies are purposeful. You create these chain of events because your story seems to include you go to another bigger story every time. So the biggest story that's going on, right? You would think Stephen A. Smith would be that guy, right? According to him, they assigned the story to him. We just showed you 2 other writers were responsible for that story. The only story that Stephen A. has, let me bring it up for you, because we done the homework, Stephen A. Bam! There it is. A car crash kills 2. Unlicensed drivers nabbed. Story written by Stephen A. Smith. A 4-year girl and a 47-year-old man were killed yesterday when a motorist whose license has been suspended more than 30 times crashed into another car on the Auburndale Street, police said. There's no, it's so bland. This is the only article you wrote, a little bitty, look at this, it's a little bitty passage. That's all they gave you. But you claim you had the biggest story in the city. This is what we can find. You see? Look at this. We challenge you to provide the information, Stephen A. We challenge you to provide the information because you have been lying. You have been lying, sir. I'm not saying Whitlock didn't do a good job. He just didn't go all the way. So when I tell you, there's layers and layers and layers. Now, why is this man lying? That's the biggest question. Now, remember Carlton Hinds? You remember Carlton Hinds, drug dealer, basketball player. Everybody compare Carmelo Anthony to him when it comes to basketball. So April of 1994, at this point, Stephen A. is now covering New York City high school basketball for the Daily News. He's no longer a freelancer. He's a sports writer now. No one played a bigger role in my own future than a kid named Carlton Hinds. That's what he talked about in his book. He was a high school basketball player in the late 80s. He played for Stevenson High School in the Bronx. At the age of 15, he was already considered special and destined for the NBA. He was heavily recruited, but Hinds, he lost that love for basketball, and he allegedly involved himself in major criminal activities. He was earning somewhere upwards of $225,000 a day selling drugs. It never explained how Hinds was able to rise to the top of the business so fast. But he was shot dead in April of 94, around 2:30 p.m. in the Bronx. He was 23. I was assigned to the story. I'm from the Bronx, so this really hits home for me, because I'm from the Bronx. I'm Stephen A. So it played on my two strengths, basketball and the streets of New York. This happened about an hour from where I grew up. So I know this world. The accident happened about an hour. An hour. So it was really easy for me, right, to call the family. They eventually, I got in contact with the Hinds family because I'm from the Bronx. I was able to track down an eyewitness. One was shot in the hospital. I found out which one he was in. I went in to interview the guy, and then I was connected to a bunch of other people, and they gave me more information on what happened because I'm from the streets of New York. That's how they know about me in these streets. Oh, we gonna get to that, Big A. You see, I'm born in the Bronx. And then when I was 4 years old, I never been back to the Bronx. But for this story, I'm from the Bronx. I was just watching Boss. Boss just died. I was just watching Run, Catch, and Kill the other day. That's crazy. That was last week. So, as Stephen A. went to go do this whole research, right? So, yeah, he went to go interview these people. And he claimed, like, oh, he's from my neck of the woods. Stephen A. lived in the Bronx till he was like 3 or 4 years old. Now, what do he remember at 3 and 4 years old about the Bronx? They moved to Queens, Hollis, Queens, when he was like 3 or 4 years old. What did he know about the Bronx? Absolutely nothing. He never went back to the Bronx. He never had no homeboys from the. He was 3 to 4 years of age when he moved from the Bronx. But he went to the projects to go interview family members and friends in the neighborhood. Hinds' mother denied that he was selling drugs. He learned that Hinds was in the streets too deep. Stephen A. could relate because he said he saw this play out in his own neighborhood where he saw friends being shot, killed, and drug addicted and would end up in jail. But Stephen A. went to Thomas Edison High School, which was 98% white. So, Stephen A. got his bones for lying, claiming that he knew the streets and all this, and they bought it. Those white folks he was able to manipulate. And there it is. His article he wrote on Carlton Hinds. So, as you see, there's a growing trend here. It started early in his career. He lied to white folks. They buy it. You see that? So he's making his bones on the back of dead black men. He didn't know Carlton Hinds. He didn't know anything about him except for he was from the Bronx. Stephen A. was lying. He didn't know nothing about Carlton Hinds until he died, and he was a basketball player from the Bronx. And he heard about the story and said, "Oh, this is going to be a good story for the paper." And they got him to write this story about Carlton Hinds. He couldn't wait to get his big break in the paper where he gets two sides because he told him he's from the Bronx. He knows this guy. He knows this area. He ain't been to the Bronx since he was 3 years old. He knew nobody over there. He grew up in Queens. So Stephen A., once again, you're exposed for being the liar you are. Mm-hmm. I know, no notifications. Um, Make sure everybody hit all on the notification when you hit the bell. So make sure you don't miss any notifications that go out. How would he respond to me? He won't. Why would he? Because he would have to acknowledge and see, he would have to disprove everything that I'm showing you right now. He knows this is real. This is real research here. This is real journalism at its core. And he is stuck. I mean, stuck. There's nothing he could do. This is the figure four leg lock for Stephen A. Smith. There's nowhere for him to go. He knows all of this is true. Now, after that publication of that story, his career was never the same again. They viewed him as somebody from the streets with connections in the streets, right? That taught Stephen A. how to be impactful with journalism. So then now he can go to Philadelphia now. He got a new job 6 months after that story. In October of 94, he hired by the Philadelphia Inquirer. They hired him based off that article he did. That Carlton Hinds story, that was what they were looking for. This is a guy we got that's grounds on in the sports worlds, and he's from the streets. That's what he sold him. The same BS a guy who went to Thomas Edison Trade School, right? Who sat there and said Jam Master Jay was one of his homeboys. Hung out with his brother. Your brother is about 11 years older than Jam Master Jay. Why would your brother hang out with Jam Master Jay? And that's one of his homeboys. Like, man, he loved this guy, man. He loved my brother and everything else. Your brother, when an 11-year-old, Jam Master Jay was 11 years old. I'm like, when your brother was living in that neighborhood, your Jam Master Jay was like 11. With the your brother was not hanging out with an 11-year-old. So you lied and claimed you was a street guy that you wasn't. So that's how you got hired at the Philadelphia newspaper. Now, why do you keep talking about these falsehoods about Coach Gaines in that article? That article you can never find in existence because it doesn't exist. He never wrote an article about him. Now, we just learned what? He deliberately misrepresented all these things about Coach Gaines. Coach Gaines was retired 3 years after your alleged article. 3 years later, that no one can find in the archives anywhere of that article that you keep claiming as your staple to fame. That's what made you the straight shooter. You would have that article framed. You would have that article on your wall. Where is this article? Where is it? No one knows. It's a myth. Please provide the article. This article that made you, you would have this article everywhere. Where is it? Why is it not in the archives? Why was the coach still on the team 3 years later? If your article got him fired, why was he still the coach for 3 more years? He was forced to retire because of a rule change saying that he can't be 80 years old and coaching basketball anymore. They changed that rule in 1993. So my thing is, if he's still on the team in 1993 doing his job, what does that say for you? We just went over the crucial gap in your journalistic background, bolstering the strength of your resume, that lie that you told, your decision to go accept a job in Atlanta, 5 hours away from your college, with the logistics aspects of it, which you never addressed, extensive discussing your aspiration for landing that dream job. We have done an extensive look into you, buddy. People have exposed Stephen A. Great research. Minimum journalistic experience, calls up the Daily News, tells them he wants to work there, gets an interview, and then gets hired. That's unheard of. So, what was so special about the Carlton Hinds story that the Philadelphia Inquirer felt needed that we had to hire him immediately? Why is there zero pictures of you or videos of you from that time? There's not one picture in your autobiography. No pictures are available online. We just have to take your word that you're telling the truth. It's not like this, buddy. Not like this, James. He didn't do it like this. This is the only photograph. This is the only photograph back when you had a little bit of hair. Now, why do you consistently lie, Stephen A? That is the question that everybody wants to know. You have been lying to get by for many years, and people are tired of it. They're tired. You lied on big house games. We pulled up your articles. You didn't get any degree in journalism, not one degree in journalism, but you're a writer. You took up mass communications. Stephen Anthony Smith. There it is. See it? Right here. Stephen Anthony Smith, mass communications. Right there. There you go. So you never were a journalist. You just hustled your way into the position. So, without your meteoric rise in the sports world, you made it like you've always made anything in life. You lied. We don't know what really happened to your brother. We can't trust anything you say. We got to doubt it all. Now, in the yearbook, the teacher that was industrial arts that you call Mr. B, the guy you felt didn't like you when you went to this all white school, you was this basketball superstar. Exactly. He was a plant. The Carlton Hinds story is where he made his bones. That's where they saw him talking about a black man got murdered in the streets, and he sold them that he was this guy from the streets. That's the Mr. B guy you were talking to, right? B.S. Oswego, right? This Charles Esterbrook. Where's Mr. B? That's Mr. B. This is the shop guy, the industrial arts guy that you were talking about in your book. That's the only guy that was in industrial arts, Charles Easterbrook. Yeah, and then it gets even more interesting because let's look at the JV team. Y'all want to take a look at the JV team? I think it's only fair. Let's look at the JV team. This is Stephen A. Smith's JV team. There it is. This is Thomas Edison School when Stephen A. was there. That's the team right there. But he was a varsity this time. So let's go to varsity team. There's no Stephen A. Smith on the team. Would you believe that? Look at the team. All white boys. There's the coach, Coach Hamilton. He got the coaches mixed up. Coach Hopkins was first off, but he's mixing the stories up. But coach, he did not coach. He coached Farsoff. So Stephen A, your memory's a little messed up. But Coach Hopkins teach Farsoff. Coach Hamlin taught the varsity team, Stephen A. So if you do your book, you should at least get it correct if you have it in your book. This was Stephen A. Smith's team that he claimed he was on and played 6 games or whatever, but there's no record of him ever playing at this school of basketball. No records. And he's not there for the team photo. He's not listed as being on the team. So when were you on this team? This is Thomas Edison's yearbook, Stephen A, with the basketball team. You couldn't beat out not one of these white boys, but yet you went to Winston Salem and you turned into Steph Curry, but you couldn't get on this team? You couldn't get on that team, Stephen A? There you go. That's your evidence right there. Tell him to dispute that. See, I told you, Whitlock got his information from me. And he didn't even do a great job. He did. I'm like, you ain't even do it right. So there it is. Thomas Edison High School. That was the Far South team that you weren't good enough to get on. And here's the varsity team that you weren't good enough to get on. But acclaim to you, you made it this year. Your senior year, you made it. You would have got, though there's no record of you ever playing in a game at Thomas Edison High School. Where is it? Where is this evidence? Where is this? Where is this evidence? That guy, that was the most important thing you just said. He should have never wrote this book. That is the best news you've ever said right there. That is the most important thing ever said. Listen to what he just said. He should have never wrote this book. And the reason he should have never wrote this book is this reason right here. The reason that's whooping his ass right now. He should have never wrote this book. Because this is the part that's whooping his ass right now. All the lies he put in that book is the reason he getting his ass whooped right now. A lot of it was on that level. No, because see, the level of lies that Stephen A has been telling has been it's been greatly ignored because no one is acknowledging the facts that this man has just simply been lying. He's been lying the whole time. He's hustled his way to become this guy.
I came on the air and talked about how Anthony Davis was a top 7 player. I take it back. Yeah. He don't look like he even wants to go anywhere near the basket. And my point is, yo, bro, you too big, you too skilled, you too talented. What has happened to Anthony Davis? Yes, Russell Westbrook can't shoot, but that's about it. We need to be talking less about Russell Westbrook and more about Anthony Davis. Because, damn it, I expected better.
We expected better from you. Now, shouts out to Coach Gaines. Yeah, he rode the success of the death of a black man and rode that to his prominent career. So it was the Carlton Hinds article. And what is he doing now? Hired to be put in the position to assassinate the characters of black athletes. That's what he's doing now, right? That's how he came in the game. So now you guys have seen it live. You've heard all the lies he told. Everything. He has been completely exposed. All of the lies he told in that book, everything. No record of anybody complaining about the coach's health. He talked about Coach Gaines. He needs to retire. His health is bad. There was never any mention of Coach Gaines' health being a concern. None of the assistant coaches mentioned it. This guy said Coach Gaines was wearing an eye patch. There's no photo of any game where Coach Gaines was wearing an eye patch. Not one teammate has ever came out and corroborated anything Stephen A. has said about the coach. Coach Gaines' son, who was helping his father out, never mentioned any of this. Never mentioned Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith is one of the most famous people they got at Winston Salem. He bought his position. He donated money, so they gave him an honorary position at Winston-Salem State. He's an honorary Q dog, meaning he paid his way in. He didn't pledge. How's he gonna spend it now? Very easy. Very easy for him to spend it. He's not gonna mention it. You see, this is what I wanted Whitlock to do. I would rather Whitlock, because he got the stage and the platform, I want them to expose him on their stage. But he didn't do it right. It's awful. Clarence Gaines Jr. for the Chicago Bulls. Never mentions Stephen A. Smith. Let that sink in. This guy said how he didn't do it right. You about to do it correctly. I did it correctly. I just did it correctly. So that's just the norm, the way we roll here. But absolutely, we did it correctly. Now, others would often say, Coach Gaines Jr.'s son was there for the Chicago Bulls ride. He was there for the dynasty. He was the scout. No, I'm talking about him coaching the game with the eye patch. He was not coaching the game with the eye patch. There's no picture of him coaching the game with an eye patch. That's not happening. Coach Gaines was there 3 years after this so-called imaginary article that no one can find anywhere. Coach Gaines died in 2005 at the age of 81. But Stephen A. Smith in 1991 said he was too old and needed to retire. None of this ever is publicized anywhere. Stephen A. was mad at Coach Gaines for never playing him in the game, putting him on the bench, and in practice, he tore his knee up and he quit. And they looked at him as a quitter. And he quit on the coach. So he was mad. Whenever he gets mad, he goes home like a baby and cry to mama. Of course they're going to bury it. They've already buried it. They didn't let the notifications go out to this video. How was I blocking you? I was caught blocking you yesterday. How was I blocking you, man? I'm like, come on, man. I told you, go to her page and subscribe. You go over there. Man, you in here stalking this woman. I saw you trying to cam up. I hit the button to put you in and you dropped off. You finna come up there and scare the woman off the show. He's like the work Wi-Fi was trash, I know. First time ever you want to cam up. Boy, I tell you, y'all ain't something, but y'all low down. Yeah, I was finna say go to work. I was like, get a job. I'm like, you at work. I'm trying to say, man, go to work. Man, that was the most craziest thing. Where that Rambo at? I was like, oh my God, you finna run this woman out of here. You see, she ran away. She got up out of there. And they got their own YouTube thing they finna start doing. So you can shoot your shot all day long. I wasn't gonna scare her off. You already did. She was already gone. She was reading those comments and was like, I'm out of here. Skip and Stephen A were made for each other since they like to lie about their past so much. Yeah. He was goddamn. She wasn't even on there no more when you was doing that. That's why you was asking where she was at. She was gone. You'd already read her off. We trying to keep people on the show. One time they pop up there, and here you come. Running them off. But they got their own show. Subscribe to their page, so when they go live, you can go over there and harass the living hell out of them. No, I didn't see a bodybuilder talk about LeBron. But yeah, we good, man. So shouts out to Kwame Brown, Buzz Light, Ticket TV, the Dreamers Pro, Jag Sports with Jose Rodriguez. Welcome to HDII TV. And we are out the door. The Patreon is cracking right now. I should show y'all what's been going on the Patreon now, because there's been something revolutionary going on over there. With the information, because everybody was talking about Epstein, and we had to show y'all Epstein is just a minion compared to the real sharks in the game. So we did that. And then, of course, we got the Nas and Jay-Z. Jay-Z was copying off Nas the whole time. So You want to check this out, definitely go to the page and you can see what's going on the Patreon. We got a lot more videos coming too. And I'm out.